Runway 1 left, taxi via right turn Charlie, Zulu 1 to Bravo 1. 1 left Charlie, Zulu to Bravo 1. Ground, Delta 716 Heavy, Tower 9 for left with Victor. Delta 716 Heavy, you're clear to push on Alpha. Clear for Alpha, with Delta 716 Heavy, Zulu 2635, release time Q5 and Alpha. On your right. City 738, runway 1 left, taxi out.
What's up YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is an exciting one for me because we finally have a solution to a problem that has been plaguing us simmers, especially those of us who are familiar with real aircraft and large jets and how they operate on the ground. That is the nose wheel tiller. Several months ago, I went down the path of trying to find the most accurate feeling side stick for the aircraft, the Airbus aircraft specifically, to make it feel like it flies in real life. I'm a real world Airbus captain. I fly these airplanes daily, well, almost daily, depending on my schedule. So I really wanted to find something that would feel close to the real thing. We went down that rabbit hole. The video is linked in the description below. However, for those of you who have followed me down this path and are getting your simulators to be tailored towards the Airbus, you have now found yourself lacking a twist grip if you went with the side stick setup that I went previously. So there have been several workarounds. You could use rudder pedals for steering on the ground. You can use a yoke for steering on the ground if you have that. But that to me just kills the immersion. We spend all this time, we spend all this money to make our airplanes look and feel and sound just like the real thing. We want to be immersed in the simulator session when we go flying. For me, one of the glaring most problematic areas was ground handling. For me and anybody else who has experienced what it actually feels like to steer one of these large aircraft on the ground, it is an experience like none other. It's a very unique experience in of itself, fine-tuning the degrees of nose wheel turn, fighting the delay from the nose wheel reaction to the tiller action, and the non-linear degree of travel that the nose wheel will react to according to the nose wheel tiller position. These are all things that are very unique to driving large commercial jets on the ground. And until now, I don't think we have been able to properly simulate that real true-to-life feeling. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the CAT3 designed nose wheel tiller. This particular model is designed and replicated from the Airbus family of aircraft. I am an Airbus captain in real life, so I am very familiar with this exact tiller, and I can tell you right off the bat, it is very high quality and it feels almost exactly like the real thing. The real tiller in the aircraft is just like you see here with a pedal disconnect button. We'll talk about that in just a minute. However, one of the biggest keys with the nose wheel tiller in the Airbus is the range of motion and the degree of turn that is actually happening on the nose wheel below. If you look on the nose wheel tiller, you can see here from CAT3 Design, they have laser engraved the markings ranging from 10 all the way to 75, with LH standing for left hand and RH standing for right hand turn. You can see that the degree of travel between 0 and 10 is actually quite large. This allows for a very fine remote tuning of the nose wheel when making gentle turns, such as going down a long straight taxiway. You can see that range of motion is almost equal between 0 and 10, and then 10 to 30, where it gets a little bit steeper in its degree of motion. This is when you start making those 90-degree turns on the taxiway, and you really have to start to be careful of your speed as you make those turns around the corner, because you don't want to snub the gear or skid out on the nose wheel. Then after 30 degrees, you could see there is a very, very sharp increase from 30 all the way to 75 degrees of travel, which is not linear if you look at the range of motion of the tiller itself. And this is just how the real aircraft behaves. All the way up to 75 and holding the tiller at the full stop position, either left hand or right hand, is most likely used for 180-degree turns. Sometimes you fly into airports where you don't have a taxiway at the end of that runway and you have to make a 180-degree turn on the runway. As a real-life pilot, that is one of the most common scenarios you're going to find for having a very tight and needing all of the radius of turn that you can get out of your aircraft. That's when you're going to be bringing those tillers all the way to the stops. It can get very finicky, and if you're not used to it, you'll notice it as a passenger. Sometimes you feel some jerking action left and right, or you feel the aircraft kind of jolt here and there. That just comes with experience. I by no means have perfected the 180 turn on the runway. I feel like I've gotten much better, but it is still always a unique challenge when you're faced with accomplishing that task. Now you can really get this in the sim and you can simulate how you actually steer on the ground. A couple other key features that I really like about this CAT3 design tiller is if you look at the underside of the tiller here, this is not on the real aircraft, but this is a much needed version here. This is the CAT3, I believe it's the plus version of the tiller, which comes with a little micro hat switch underneath the grip here. This little hat switch will allow us to have more functionality and more binding capability if you want to bind views, such as in P3D or X-Plane or Microsoft, whatever it may be, or you just want to bind it to something else. If you have the same setup like I do, you'll notice that on my joystick, I don't have a lot of buttons. I have a realistic side stick from the aircraft, which only has 2 buttons on it. This over here, this tiller with this little micro hat switch underneath, is going to be a much welcomed little hat switch, so I can bind additional commands to this over here. Looking at the center of the tiller, you notice we have a pedal disconnect switch. This is how the aircrew successfully accomplishes a flight control check without doing S-turns down the taxiway. When you're going down the taxiway, even with the nose wheel tiller, if you're steering the aircraft with a nose wheel tiller, the rudder pedals, depending on the aircraft, will have a slight degree of motion to help aid you on the center line. So if you're going down a long straight taxiway, you may not even put your hand on the tiller, you just use the rudders because they give you a couple degrees either side of center to maintain that center point. However, when you need to do a flight control check on the rudder, you need to be able to disconnect the rudder system from the nose gear, i.e. pedal disconnect push button. You simply press the pedal disconnect push button down, and then you can move the rudders freely, and it has no effect to the nose gear. That is now fully simulated here with the CAT3 design tiller, and you can bind it accordingly in your simulator of choice, whether it be X-Plane, Microsoft Flight Sim, or P3D. As we wrap up this video, I just want to give you guys a brief overview of the actual component itself. Once you receive it, you'll notice it's in its own box. You do not need to mount this. It actually comes with 4 little rubber feet on the bottom that are perfectly stable. I actually just have mine sitting on top of a little plastic iPad case that doesn't have an iPad in it, and it's perfect sitting right next to my side stick. There are slots and holes for mounting, however, if you wish, and CAT3 Design, they also offer mounting solutions as well. In addition to just the Airbus tiller on their website, they have a Boeing tiller, they have Boeing mounts, they have a bunch of different products that I can only imagine are of the same quality of the tiller, such as a landing gear lever panel as well. So give them a shout, check them out, cat3design.com. The link will be in the description below. As we wrap it up here, I just want to give you guys one other tidbit of information that is pretty exciting. This product is not specifically just for Airbus. If you want an Airbus, maybe you're an Airbus fan, you can have it and use it for your Airbus. But I have also tested it in several different aircraft within X-Plane 11, such as one of my personal favorites, the Felis 747-200. Believe me, taxiing the 747 around with a tiller and that big giant airplane is an experience that you probably have not felt yet, as well as the Felis A340-600 and several other aircraft that all use tiller axis. As long as it has a tiller axis within the product, the airplane that you're flying, you'll be able to drive that airplane on the ground with this specific tiller. Now, of course, if you want to be hardcore, you can always get a Boeing tiller as well for your Boeing aircraft. It does work in Microsoft Flight Simulator as well. Works flawlessly with the fly-by-wire A320 mod, which is a fantastic little freeware airplane for Microsoft Flight Sim, and it is a seamless plug and play, and it works. No drivers to install. All you have to do is a calibration, and you are good to go. Guys, that is going to wrap it up. I am very excited about this product. We, as simmers, we do everything that we can to make our sim feel, sound, and fly as real as possible. As real as it gets. That's been the motto of Flight Simulator for decades. This will change how you feel about large jets on the ground. Take it from someone who does this for a living. Driving aircraft on the ground with a tiller is an experience that is very unique of itself. You can now finally capture that with a tiller setup. The last thing I want to leave you with before you go is, guys, these gentlemen over at CAT3 Design are for fellow aviators and sim enthusiasts as yourself. They are gentlemen that have been laid off in Australia due to the impacts of COVID and have now since resorted to making hardware and peripherals for our desktop flight sims. It just gives you a little extra feeling when you go in and you make the purchase. You realize you are contributing to someone who shares the same passions and ideas that you do, that we are so happy to enjoy on our sims at home. So that's going to wrap this video up, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you again here on another V1 video very soon.